So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So, the title for my talk today is Keeping Mama Happy. और मैं हमेशा लोगों को औरतों से यही कहती हूँ, अपने आप को भी यही कहती हूँ, और हमने सब ने ये नोटिस किया होगा कि जब हम खुश होते हैं, जब हम at peace होते हैं, when we are doing well as mothers, as women in the house, even before we become mothers, everyone else around us is much more at peace and happy, right? So the way I like to think about it is, when mama's not happy, nobody's happy, okay? And so today, inshallah, we will be talking about what we can do to help ourselves through these challenging times. So what has happened exactly? Why is this so hard? मैं हमेशा सोचती हूँ कि हम लोग एक रात सोए और जब हम उठे दूसरी सुबह को तो पूरी दुनिया बदल चुकी थी, right? Like literally we went to sleep one morning, and when we one evening, and when we woke up, the whole world had changed. We were in lockdown, planes stopped flying, people were stuck where they are, right? और औरतों के ऊपर ये काफी इसका असर हुआ है। किस तरह? पहले तो जो लोग या तो घर से काम करते हैं या बाहर से काम करते हैं, हमने नोटिस किया होगा कि हमारा काम बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ चुका है, राइट? जब सब लोग घर पे होते हैं, काफी लोगों के साथ ये भी हुआ है कि जो उनके बच्चे घर छोड़ के चले जा चुके थे काम के लिए, वो काफी लोगों के वापस भी आ चुके हैं, राइट? तो हमारे, और बिकॉज हम बाहर नहीं जा रहे और लोग दूसरों के घर नहीं जा रहे, वी हैव टू कुक, क्लीन and do all of that 24/7, right? जो लोग घर पे बच्चों को पढ़ा रहे हैं, right? People who overnight we turned into also what you may call it, school teachers, right? And again, because of that, our physical work has really increased. Apart from that, our emotional work has also increased. What do I mean by emotional work? So, like I said, we set the emotional tone as women in our families, right? और जब हमारे इर्द गिर्द जो फैमिली मेंबर्स हैं वो स्ट्रेस्ड होते हैं, तो हम कोशिश करते हैं ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा कि हम उनको calm down करें, right? And because of that, we are finding that our emotional work has really increased because people around us are really stressed. It could be our husbands, our children, children, for example, those who are going to university, those who are at school, it's very disruptive for them. So obviously they are going through a lot of changes and stress, right? And similarly, our spouses, all of us who are working outside, who are working at home, we are finding that job security is a very big thing. And because of that, people around us are stressed, right? So there is much more uncertainty, or at least in North America, मैंने ये बहुत notice किया है कि जो our generation, I'm talking about my generation, right? The baby boomers and the earlier, a little bit following on from that, right? We like certainty, we like to plan our lives, we are very focused on order, and sometimes I would call it even rigidity, right? So uncertainty in any way gives us a lot of stress, and this has been, for people who are who like certainty, it's been a very, very difficult time. And on top of that, we have fewer supports. Fewer supports means that पहले क्या होता था कि अगर हम stress हो गए तो हमने किसी को phone कर लिया, किसी के घर चले गए, shopping चले गए. We had ways of distracting ourselves, and we had people that we could reach out for. ज़ाहिर even the people जिनको हम connect करते थे, जिनसे हम राब्ता कायम करते थे कि भाई to calm us down, to provide support for us, everyone is stressed, right? तो हम किससे बात करें? और because of this, ज़ाहिर है, all of these things have added a lot to mental and emotional work and stress on ourselves as women, right? Now, just what do we exactly mean by stress? Because बहुत आजकल लिखा गया है, बहुत सारी research भी हो रही है stress के ऊपर. और stress is basically any anxiety producing event or experience. They can be acute or they can be chronic. Acute means कि भाई जैसे कि कल बहुत बड़ी कोई event है मेरे पास, something of significance. So that is just acute. It's short term, but it's very strong, right? Chronic means something that lasts a long time. नाउ ह्यूमन बीइंग्स हम जैसे हमें बनाया गया है, हम लोग जो अक्यूट स्ट्रेसेस हैं उनको बहुत इजीली हैंडल कर सकते हैं, राइट? क्योंकि इट एक्चुअली हेल्प्स अस, यू नो, व्हेन द स्ट्रेस इज अक्यूट, इट हेल्प्स अस मूव फॉरवर्ड, इट हेल्प्स अस do our best. You know, all the hormones that are produced in our body as a result of that stress helps us do better. Chronic stress, on the other hand, something that lasts a long time, right? That is something that human beings don't do well at. जब chronic stress होता है तो हम पूरे वक्त जैसे कि fight और flight में होते हैं, हम relax नहीं कर पाते, और इसी वजह से हमारा well-being is compromised, right? So stress obviously can be internal or external. External stress यही हुआ कि भाई आपने जॉब लूज कर दिया, आपके स्पाउस ने जॉब लूज कर दिया, आपकी बहुत सारे लोग हैं घर पे. These are all external stresses, right? Internal stresses is कि भाई हम अपने आप से कैसे बातें करते हैं, right? हम अपने आप को क्या कहते हैं, हम अपने आप को कैसे, how do we conceptualize these things. So these are internal stresses. And the thing is कि जो आजकल है हम लोग बहुत बिल्कुल ही कंट्रोल ही नहीं कर पा रहे अपना environment, क्योंकि कोई भी नहीं, like even people who we count on to look after us, right? The government, the doctors, all of them are at a loss on how to deal with the situation, right? So because of that, our ability to control and the sense of certainty in our external circumstances has become very little. And because of that, our internal stress goes high, right? Now, obviously, you know, given that we can't control our outside stressors, the idea is to turn inwards and see how we can build our inner resources to deal with the stress. Okay, जैसे डॉक्टर गुलनाज ने इतनी अच्छी तरह समझाया, मुझे बहुत ही, I really enjoyed her presentation, that you know, there's two things. One is कि भाई अगर आपके पास वैक्सीन है तो आप वैक्सीन लगा लें, अगर आप किसी तरह अपनी इम्यूनिटी बिल्ड कर सकते हैं फिजिकली तो आप वो करें, right? And dealing with stress is exactly the same thing. So you know, everything we're going to be talking about is like getting a vaccine, is like building our immunity to tolerate stress, okay? And in very simple words, when we do that, that is called resilience. Resilience यानी कि कुछ हुआ, हम, you know, हमने कोई शिकस्त पाई, we had a setback of some sort, and then how do we bounce back? Okay, and by the way, I've spoken a lot about this recently. ये podcast में भी काफी episodes हैं भी और आएंगे भी. You know, there's different ways of resilience. खैर आज हम उसके ऊपर नहीं बात करेंगे, but for people who are interested, you know, talking about this, why focus particularly on women? So, you know, three very important reasons. First of all, we know that as women, we set the emotional tone for the home. When we are at peace, and इसके ऊपर काफी research है with parenting, with marriage, with all our relationships, जब हम अपने आप को खुश रखते हैं तो वो सारे जो हमारे family members हैं उनके ऊपर बहुत अच्छा असर पड़ता है. You know, most of us women, we are used to giving, right? And the thing that motivates us is the well-being of our children. Right? And if we recognize that if we look after ourselves, our children will benefit more from our well-being than from anything else. ये बहुत important point है. क्यों? क्योंकि काफी दफा ये होता है कि और हम as औरतें हम लोग क्या करते हैं, पूरा वक्त हम उनको सर्व करते रहते हैं, right? घर सही होगा, खाना बहुत अच्छा बनेगा, you know, बहुत सब चीज सेट होगी, लेकिन हम स्ट्रेस्ड होंगे. Right? काफी हमने खुद ये एक्सपीरियंस किया होगा अपनी फैमिलीज में, या you know, this is what we do, right? We do everything for our families, but then we ourselves are depleted. And जब हम young लोगों से बात करते हैं, हम अपने बच्चों से बात करते हैं, तो पता ये चलता है कि भाई खाना आप हमें टेक आउट दे दें, बेशक खाना अच्छा ना बनाएं, घर जो हम साफ रखते हैं वो तो खैर अपने लिए रखते हैं, बच्चों को उसका कोई ज्यादा शौक नहीं होता, ज्यादातर यही हमने नोटिस किया है. लेकिन बच्चे और हस्बैंड भी ज्यादातर यही कहते हैं कि भाई तुम कम करो लेकिन खुश रहा करो, right? And that's why today we will talk about this. And lastly, you know, we are so focused as women on giving, but we need to remind ourselves that अगर हमारे पास कुछ है नहीं तो हम क्या देंगे लोगों को. जैसे हम जब प्लेन में भी जाते हैं तो हमें यही कहा जाता है कि भाई अपना ऑक्सीजन मास्क आप पहले पहने, राइट। और यही वो बात है कि भाई हम दूसरों को देते जाएंगे, लेकिन जब हमने सारा पानी अपने जग में से खाली कर दिया है तो हम लोगों को क्या दे रहे हैं। So, two keys we will talk about today to building resilience. The first is called self-care and the other is called self-compassion. Okay, so two very important words. They're very related but slightly different. So let's see what we mean by that. Okay. सो सेल्फ केयर, ये हमने काफी आजकल बहुत ही ट्रेंडी वर्ड है, बज वर्ड है सोशल मीडिया पे, बहुत हम देखेंगे। लेकिन जो हम देखते हैं सोशल मीडिया पे वो ये होता है कि भाई कोई बीच पे जा रहा है या कोई बहुत अच्छी हॉलिडे पे जा रहा है और कैंडल्स लिट हैं और बहुत अच्छा माहौल है, और हम जब देखते हैं तो हम सोचते हैं मेरी जिंदगी तो कभी ऐसी हो ही नहीं सकती, ना मेरे पास पैसे हैं, ना मेरे पास टाइम है कि भाई मैं जाके भी कोई बीच पे पिनिया कोलाडा पीऊं, right? But this is not self-care. Okay, that is there's a huge axe, but what we're talking about is activities and practices that we can engage on in a regular basis to reduce stress and maintain our short and emotional health and well-being, right? So what that means is कि ये बहुत बड़ी चीजें नहीं कहूंगी मैं आपको बहुत ही छोटी छोटी चीजें बताऊंगी जो हम सब रोज कोई 10 मिनट भी नहीं लगेंगे, बट ये आइडिया ये है कि भाई आई हैव टू, इट्स मोर इम्पोर्टेंट देन एनीथिंग एल्स, इट्स द आइडिया दैट आई हैव टू लुक आफ्टर माई सेल्फ. दैट इज द आइडिया, बिकॉज हम बहुत सारे ऐसे हम औरतें हैं जो हम कभी ये सोचते ही नहीं, कभी सोचते ही कि नहीं भाई हम पूरा वक्त दिन रात हम दूसरों को दे रहे हैं, लेकिन हम अपने लिए how am I building my own muscles so that I can be strong and also serve others, serve God and help myself, right? Self compassion ये related word है लेकिन थोड़ा सा different है, right? Self compassion means responding with kindness towards yourself when you are having a difficult time, when you fail or you notice that you don't like something about yourself. So, क्या होता है कि जब हम कोई मिस्टेक करते हैं या स्ट्रेस से गुजर रहे होते हैं तो हम अपने आप को बहुत अजीब अजीब चीजें कहेंगे, राइट? कि मैं ही क्यों ऐसी हूँ, व्हाई कांट आई कोप एवरीवन एल्स। और जब हम देखते हैं कि सोशल मीडिया पे तो सब इतने खुश नजर आ रहे हैं, तो हमारी जिंदगी क्यों इतनी मुश्किल है, राइट? सो देन वी टेल आवरसेल्व्स ऑल सॉर्ट्स ऑफ थिंग्स, राइट? एंड समटाइम्स ये हमारे कल्चर में बहुत है कि भाई कुछ भी हो रहा है आपको तो सब्र करें, right? Now, sabr is a very beautiful word. It is a very important aspect of our faith. And sabr does not mean that we don't help ourselves. Sabr does not mean that we ignore our pain, that we keep telling ourselves it doesn't matter. Because, हम क्या कहते हैं कि भाई मुझे तो कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता, चाहे लोग क्या कहें, मैं तो अल्लाह से लॉ लगा के बैठी हुई हूँ, राइट? और ये चीजें बिल्कुल सही हैं, लेकिन जब हम ऐसी चीजें कहते हैं कि भाई what we are doing is we are ignoring the pain that is within us, we are actually not doing ourselves any favor. क्योंकि I like to think of it as a beach ball. जब आप एक जो बीच बॉल बड़ा सा होता है उसमें हवा भरी हुई होती है, राइट? अगर आप वो बीच बॉल लें और उसको पानी में डंक करते हैं, राइट, यू ट्राई टू कीप इट you hold it underwater. What is going to happen is that the longer you hold it underwater, the stronger it will be when it bounces back. Okay, and that's exactly it. जब हम अपना पेन, अपनी खुद की नीड्स बहुत टाइम तक इग्नोर करते हैं, तो फिर क्या होता है कि that shows up as illness, that shows up as lack of immunity, that shows up as lack of even physical well-being, right? And this is again a whole different topic of how emotional and physical well-being is related, but there's a lot of research about it right now, and again very good authorities will tell you that when we ignore emotional stress for a long time, it will show up in our bodies. Okay, so what are we, next we're going to be talking about some keys to building emotional resilience and self-compassion within ourselves. And again, the idea is that these are practices yani things that we do every day. छोटी छोटी चीजें जो हम लोग रोज करते हैं, जैसे कि हम रोज खाना खाते हैं, हम रोज नमाज पढ़ते हैं, हम रोज चीजें करते हैं, ये चीजें भी रोजाना या जितना भी हम कर सकते हैं, we have to work to doing that. Okay, So the first key is कि हम अपना दिन और सही शुरू करें और हम अपनी रात we adopt some rituals that we begin and we end our day on the right note. So just if I was to ask you to reflect on this, हम सब मिलके सोचते हैं कि हम सुबह जब अगर हमारी अच्छी सुबह होती है, हम कहते हैं ना कभी कभी आज सुबह अच्छी हुई है, तो जब हमारी सुबह अच्छी होती है, what does that mean? What are we doing in those days that our morning is going well? Okay. During the day, what do we do to stay on track? जैसे कि हमारी सुबह अच्छी हुई, लेकिन फिर किसी ने हमें कुछ कह दिया, हम upset हो गए, तो what do I do right now to get back on track? और फिर रात को what helps me wind down at the end of the day and reconnect with myself? Zahir hai, if I sleep in a peaceful way, my night is going to go well and I will wake up refreshed, right? If I go to bed stressed and I've carried the stresses of the day with me, I'm not going to have that kind of restful sleep that will recharge me, okay? तो एक चीज जो what I recommend is कि हर रोज 3-4 दफा या जितना भी हम कर सकते हैं, ये it only takes a few seconds, it's not a long practice, but we do a personal check-in. A personal check-in means that and we can do all of this, we can do it right now all together. If you just close your eyes, आप अपनी आंखें बंद करें और आप अपना attention अंदर की तरफ ले चलें कि how am I feeling right now? Most people जब लोग हमें पूछते हैं how are you, तो हम automatically कहते हैं what? Fine, alhamdulillah. These are automatic things we say, right? And which is fine, we're not going to be talking about social stuff right now, but do I acknowledge to myself, if I'm having a hard day, do I tell myself, yes, today is a hard day? And also a check-in to really begin to understand what nourishes my soul. Now, my soul includes my body, my heart, my mind. What are some of the things that I do that nourish my soul? So I know for me, it's very important to look at nature, even if I can't go out. So one of the very short practices that I have is that I go to my window if I can't go outside and just take in the garden, take in the sky, and all of this again doesn't take very long, but it nourishes my soul, okay? On the other hand, what drains your energy? What are some of the things that we are doing that are draining our energy? And for me, I know कि जो चीज बहुत ज़्यादा मेरी energy drain कर देती है, वो है Twitter. Okay. Of course, all of us go on social media, and that's a whole different subject, how much and what we should be doing on there. But जैसे Instagram है, उस पे अच्छी तस्वीरें होती हैं, Facebook पे you get, different things. But Twitter in particular, I notice, is just full of bad news. Okay. Bad news in very short. So I know कि जिस दिन मैं Twitter पे जाती हूँ रात को before sleeping, my sleep will be impacted. Okay. What drains my energy during this pandemic is looking obsessively at the figures, looking at the news. It drains my energy, okay? So again, recognize what is happening. Recognize कि जो चीज़ मैं करती हूँ जिससे मुझे फायदा हो रहा है और जो चीज़ मैं करती हूँ उससे मुझे फायदा नहीं हो रहा. अगर मैं कोई चीज़ कर रही हूँ जिससे मुझे फायदा नहीं हो रहा, तो कम करो, उस चीज़ को कम करो. It's like very, very simple, right? But sometimes we don't even think like that. And also, let's make a habit of asking ourselves, what do I need right now? Very important. What do I need right now? What I need right now, it's a simple thing, right? I may need a hug. I may need 5 minutes to myself. I may just need to sit down and put my feet up, right? So it's a habit. It's a habit, developing a habit to actually check in with ourselves and ask myself, what do I need right now? Because sometimes क्या होता है कि हम दूसरों पे गुस्से हो जाते हैं because they're not doing what we want them to do, right? But how can we even ask them to do what we want if we ourselves are not recognizing what we need? And this is a very easy way to do a emotional personal check-in, and it's called HALT, HALT. Hungry, am I, so this is how we do it. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Okay. And and hungry could be hungry for reading, hungry for learning, hungry for whatever it is that nourishes our soul, right? Hungry simply means that I'm depleted, it's not only food, okay? So am I feeling angry? Now again, the minute I tell somebody to focus on the anger, अगर वो पहली दफा होता है तो कहेंगे लोग कि भाई अस्तगफिरुल्लाह और एंगर तो करना ही नहीं चाहिए, एंगर को तो सप्रेस करना चाहिए. But here's the thing, we are not telling you to act on that anger. But अगर हम अपने आप से इंटीमेट नहीं होंगे अपने आप से, राइट? हमको पता नहीं चलेगा कि अंदर हो क्या रहा है. हाउ आर वी फीलिंग, हाउ आर वी थिंकिंग, हाउ कैन वी नर्चर एंड टेक केयर ऑफ आवरसेल्व्स, राइट? सो नन ऑफ दिस मीन्स कि भाई अगर हम एंग्री, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू टेल यू गो एंड स्क्रीम एट योर चाइल्ड or go tell your husband off. That's not what this is about, right? It's about recognizing what is happening within me. So acknowledge the feelings, जो कुछ भी है. अगर मैं गुस्से में हूँ, अगर मुझे सिर्फ lonely feel कर रहा है, sad feel कर रहा है, I'm feeling exhausted, and I know for me, this is what I've been going through, right? Feeling emotionally drained and exhausted because of everything that's happening, apart from, just the pandemic, there is the whole, political situation, there's the revolution actually is what's happening in front of us, and a lot of that is very sad. So if we are feeling those things, it's good. We're human beings, we can't really numb ourselves out through life. If we are feeling this, the idea is to turn towards ourselves with self-kindness rather than self-judgment. Okay, so what do I mean? And I do this all the time, right? If I am exhausted at the end of the day, I will give myself a hard time. Why am I so tired? Why can't I have more energy? Look at this one, look at that one. Look at this person on social media doing 1,000 skips, right? I can't even do 5. But the idea is that's not helping me, because जब हम अपने आप से ऐसी critical बातें करते हैं तो हम अपनी खुद की energy को drain कर रहे होते हैं. Right? So instead of that, how about I just turn towards myself with self-kindness? It doesn't take any time. This is not about time, right? This is about the attitude. The second aspect of self-compassion is common humanity. जब हम कोई बुरे वक्त से गुजरे होते हैं, खैर this pandemic, everyone's going through it, right? But generally when we are going through a difficult time, we feel very isolated. We feel कि ये सिर्फ हमारे साथ हो रहा है, सब और खुश हैं, सिर्फ trouble में मैं ही हूँ, right? लेकिन self-compassion means to remind ourselves कि this is part of being human. किसी के साथ भी अगर ये चीज हुई, अगर मैं सुबह उठी और मेरी सास ने मुझे कुछ कह दिया या मेरी बेटी ने मुझे कुछ कह दिया, तो दुख होगा, and that's okay. That's part of being human, right? And thirdly is mindfulness versus over-identification. What does this mean? So even though we accept our emotions, even though we accept our thoughts, we just remind ourselves कि देखो आज मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है, कल will be a better day. It doesn't mean कि अगर मुझे कोई सोच आई, जैसे कि अगर मुझे किसी ने कहा, right, husband ने कुछ कह दिया या सासों के ऊपर काफी होता है, तो I will use that as an example कि अगर सास ने कुछ कह दिया, तो I have made it in my mind कि भाई she is like that. This is how I will think. Mindfulness means कि भाई just because I am thinking such a thing doesn't make it true. That I have a little bit of awareness कि I can stand apart from my thoughts, I can stand apart from my emotions and really look at them and again work with kindness towards myself, but also not over-identify with the thought and emotion. If this is not making sense, or if you need more clarification, please ask the question, and I'm happy to do more of it. So the self-compassion break is actually a practice, and I know I've promised many people that I will put up the meditation at some point on my podcast. It hasn't happened yet, inshallah at some point, but here to just remind ourselves that this is we just take 3 minutes of our day, several times a day, as much as we need, and give ourselves the self-compassion break. Literally put our hands on our heart, feel our heart beating, and wish well to ourselves. It's not complicated. And we make it extremely complicated. There are books written on this, hundreds of research studies done on this, but the idea itself is extremely simple, okay? Then we talked about starting and ending our day right. So what exactly does this look like, okay? What do we do in the morning? The first thing that I recommend is to start the day with an intention. Intention means what? How am I going to show up in this world? Okay, so a lot of times my intention will be for focus, it will be for kindness, it will be for compassion, it might be for service, whatever your intention is. And again, there's a lot written on the blog. I'm happy to send the organizers links if you would like that. But set an intention before you get out of bed. Okay. Secondly, ground yourself. Ground yourself means it's actually a physical practice. And जब हम बिस्तर से निकलते हैं, तो we actually just stand. We stand and whoever is watching can please do this just so that you get the feeling, you understand what is being asked. Grounding yourself means that you stand with your feet apart a little bit, or feel the earth supporting you. जैसे कि अपना attention जो है आप अपने पैरों में डालें और आप notice करें कि earth कैसे feel कर रही है. Very often I will say, imagine that you are a tree. जब हम trees को देखते हैं तो वो बड़े trunks होते हैं, और जब हवा भी आती है तो वो जरा सा हिलते हैं लेकिन वो गिर नहीं जाते, right? क्योंकि उनकी roots बहुत strong होती हैं. So we can actually imagine, if we just close our eyes, stand with our feet shoulder width apart, and we can imagine that we have roots growing from our feet into the ground. And when we do that, we actually feel the strength that this gives us. And we begin to notice, even if we are swaying a little bit, हम जरा सा हिल रहे हैं, लेकिन जो हमारे पैर हैं वो बहुत ही अच्छी तरह टिके हुए हैं ज़मीन पे, right? Like a tree. So this is again a practice that we can do whenever we feel ungrounded, when we feel stressed, anxiety. It's a really good way to bringing ourselves back into our body as opposed to our head. And again, जो हमारे पास बहुत सारी lists होती हैं दिन में, right? So again, we can't really accomplish that much, especially when we are in a state of stress. We need to focus, right? What are 1, 2, or 3 things that I can get done today? And if that means, today I will stay out of bed for 6 hours, again, think small. जब हम बहुत ही trouble से गुजर रहे होते हैं, तो we give ourselves harder time because I'm not being able to do stuff, right? And then again, lastly, acknowledge your power. कि although there are a lot of things which are not in control, but I still do have control over things that I say to myself, the way I show up in the world. And I love this quote. It says, I'm larger, better than I thought. I did not know I held so much goodness, right? So it's just something to remind ourselves. I'm conscious of the time, but just a few more slides left. So bedtime routine, what went well today? It's a good idea कि end of the day हम ये सोचें कि आज सही क्या हुआ, क्योंकि कभी-कभी क्या होता है कि when it's a hard day, we start focusing on everything that went wrong, कि हमने उसको डांट दिया, उसने हमें डांट दिया, but अच्छी चीज क्या हुई कि भाई आज weather अच्छा था, आज I ordered something, it showed up on time, my knees didn't hurt, right? Anything that you can focus on that went well. And this is obviously tying into a gratitude practice. आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा लिखा हुआ है gratitude पे कि how it changes us, it changes our emotions, it changes our mental state. And lastly, something to do better tomorrow, राइट? ये मतलब नहीं है ग्रैटिट्यूड का कि हम बैठ जाएं और इम्प्रूव ना करें अपने आप को. दैट्स नॉट व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, राइट? बट व्हेन वी डू इट विद काइंडनेस, एंड देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च ऑन दिस, दैट विल पावर, हम हमेशा यही सोचते थे कि राइट, हम अगर इफ वी आर नाइस टू आवरसेल्व्स, we will become soft and weak and we won't do anything, right? Actually, what research shows now is that when you engage in self-compassion, when you're kind to yourself, you can actually do a lot more. Your willpower increases. So something to do better tomorrow, it can be part of our bedtime routine. Yeah, I will just mention it. It's a long topic, is learning to speak up. राइट? हम एज औरतें, हम क्या होता है कि काफी दफा रिजेंटफुल हो जाते हैं क्योंकि लोग हमें समझ नहीं पा रहे, और लोग हमें समझ नहीं पा रहे क्योंकि हमने उनको कुछ कहा ही नहीं है. हम सोचते हैं दिल में और दिमाग में कि भाई, if they really loved me, they would know. Okay. And as women, we often do this to our spouses. You know, we expect them to read our minds and to give us what we want. So, you know, for young people who are listening, let me save you years and years of heartache. He doesn't know what you want. Okay, and neither do your kids. So if you tell him what you want, if you tell your kids what you want, your life will be so much easier, and so will theirs. Okay, so reach out for support, communicate your needs, and also again begin to notice, right, what happens when your needs are met and what happens when they're not met, and you can communicate that to people. To your loved ones, right? If I look after myself, I will be in a much better mood. You know, if you just like manage the house for half an hour, let me go for a walk, I promise you I'll be in a much better mood when at dinner time, right? So, and to remember that self-care and self-compassion is a way of life. It's not a reward for something that we have done, okay? It's a practice. It's not a project. It's not something that we do once and it's done. It's about doing small things often. It's about doing little things every day, and everything we talked about today, right? None of it is something to put on your to-do list. This is not what that is about, right? It's about having the attitude of nurturing ourselves like we would nurture something very special. When we have a car, we keep the gas tank full and we keep the car serviced. Why? Because when we don't, it doesn't perform well, right? And we expect that out of an engine, but we sometimes don't take the same kind of care for ourselves, right? And lastly, to remind ourselves that taking care of ourselves has good ripple effects for others. This is not selfish. जब हम अपने आप का ख्याल रखते हैं तो इसका ये मतलब नहीं कि हम सेल्फिश हैं, क्योंकि जब हम खुश होते हैं तो दूसरे हमारे जो इर्द गिर्द लोग हैं, जो फैमिली मेंबर्स हैं, उनके ऊपर बहुत ही अच्छा असर पड़ेगा, राइट? When we nourish ourselves, we nourish our relationships. And when we set healthy boundaries in relationships, right? When we learn to say no for things that is really outside my comfort zone or outside my ability at the moment, it helps us from getting depleted or angry or resentful and eventually needing to withdraw. बहुत सारी मैंने ऐसी औरतों के साथ काम किया है जो पूरी जिंदगी गुजार देते हैं to be in a state where they are serving, not speaking up for themselves, not taking care of themselves, and when they reach a certain age, they are tired, depressed, angry. Okay, and it's not worth it. It's simply not worth it. We're not doing anyone any favors. You know, when we think we're serving people, and yet when they are telling us, you know, in order to serve us, look after yourself. Our kids, you know, if you ask your kids, you ask your spouses, they would all want a happier you than a more productive you, and a you that does many things. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation as such. You know, when we are doing the discussion or when you are engaging in the chat, think of three things. How have you been taking care of yourself during this pandemic? You know, what have you been doing that has worked? And for me, I'll share an example. One thing I noticed that really helps me cope with uncertainty is decluttering. Okay, it's a silly thing, but it really helps me. And how I know that I am depleted is when I don't have the energy to do that, right? When I am feeling good, I cope with the extra time, with whatever, by, organizing stuff and creating order. And I know that I'm depleted when I don't have the time to do it, or I don't have the motivation. So it's really important to get to know yourselves, right? Secondly, what are your main takeaways? What are some things that made sense today? What didn't make sense, if you still have questions? And lastly, extremely important, right? What will you commit to doing differently? Because all of us, I've told you probably nothing new, we all know this, but the magic is not in the knowing, the magic is in the action, right? So even if you take away one little thing and you do it differently, you will have great impact in your life, and things will inshallah begin to move in the right direction. Also wanted to tell you about a lot of resources that are available. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, you might want to do that. Daily Wisdom is where we send a short inspirational email every morning to just, on various different subjects in psychology. And for those of you who are wondering, sorry, I always say this, I forgot this time, no need to take notes. The handouts have already been uploaded to the website, so you can go there and download the handouts and review anything that you missed or that you would want to look at again. So over to you guys.